Well, coming up on October the 28th will be the ABD Conference and Expo, and one of our keynote speakers is here, Darren Myers from TAB CSRA. How are you, sir?
I'm great, Neil. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Had a great weekend.
That's good, and we're excited moving on into the Expo, which will be at the Space in downtown Augusta, and we're excited about a preview on this podcast to let folks know what you'll be talking about. In a general term, it's team building, but really it's superstar versus team.
Yeah, that's right. Coming up with the title, my experience is how important teams are always overcomes any individual kind of performance. And I think all too often we talk about how important teams are, but I'm not sure we take it to the next step and really try to figure out what it takes to build that team. And I think we talk a good game, but often I'm not sure we put it into play.
Of course, we're in the Deep South where football is like a religion, not only on Friday night and Saturdays with college, but on the pros and Sunday. And it's proven out, I think, over time in sports that you can have a phenomenal superstar that can score all these points, but if the team isn't, really first and foremost, the success won't be the same.
That's right. I do think that sports analogies are maybe overused, but really they're used because people can relate to them. And when I entitled this podcast, I thought about Matthew Stafford, who was a Georgia quarterback at one point back in his college days.
Many Saturdays between the hedges.
Right, but went to Detroit. And frankly, unfortunately for any Detroit fans out there, I'm sorry I'm going to use this, but Detroit Lions have not been a very good performing organization for years, and Matthew Stafford was probably been up there for a decade. He gets traded last year, and he gets traded to a team out west, and guess what? They're one of the best, if not currently the best NFL team in the league right now.
Yeah, Los Angeles Rams.
Right. And so it makes you think, how can a quarterback that was in the cellar with an organization all of a sudden in one brief moment is now at the top of the game?
So what's the difference between an individual? Are they just sort of flailing, looking for that compass, and does the team kind of have it together? Do they have that vision?
Well, I think there's many reasons why a team maybe performs well or doesn't perform well. I think that's a complex answer to, frankly, a complex question. But I do think there's certain things that good teams all have, and you'd mentioned one, sort of a vision or a destination. Mm-hmm. They all know where they're going, right? And with any kind of culture in an organization, whether it's, we've talked before about accountability and a culture of accountability, team culture is also important. Organization, just saying the word, hey, team's important, doesn't automatically make all of a sudden my organization has a great team culture just because I'm saying how important teams are. Mm-hmm. And I think all too often we get caught up into the titles but don't want to get into the works of making a culture, which frankly probably takes quite a bit of time. And but there are certain attributes, and probably one of the first things that you do with a team is setting a vision, or I like to say almost a destination. Mm-hmm. Does everyone know where the team's going and heading? And then are people, I think, equally aligned to that? Just because you, as the owner of a business or owner of a team, franchise, frankly, doesn't necessarily mean that everybody's on board. So I think important to the destination is everybody aligned to that particular destination or vision.
And I know coming up at our expo, and you can learn more at abdexpo.com, we'll have a bio of Darren and some of the topics, but you're going to kind of look at internal team building and then external team building. And they're both very different, and both, some involve professional and some involve personal. And share a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, businesses, once you've got that destination set, then I think it's important that you sit down with your team and do people understand their roles, and do you recruit to those roles? Do you develop your team? Once you get the right players on your team, you got to certainly develop them. And I think in some cases, and again, gosh, I'm going to overuse the sports analogy, but sometimes you got to trade players. You can't always have the same players, and I think establishing a team sometimes means maybe I got the wrong person in the wrong role, and so you need to swap around. And in some cases, if you're doing a good job, I think it may mean that a particular individual leaves the team. And that may be good for that particular team, and it honestly may be good for that individual as well. So,
what's a good example of a team working well together inside the building? And then have you ever been part of a team in which y'all might go bowling, and that somehow has a little bit of an impact?
Yeah. Well, from team building exercises and getting out of the business and getting to know individuals and at a personal level, I think you can never go wrong. And I think people do that, whether it's golf outings, bowling, off-site meetings where you can have a little bit of let your guard down and let people get to know what people think and how they what kind of interests they have outside of work. I think it's never a bad way of helping build team. You talk about internal team. You got to recognize, I think most people, especially in medium or larger organizations, but even largely small too, you could operate on multi or differing teams within the same organization. Say you're in a chemistry department. I mean, you could argue that you're on the chemistry team. You're on the, maybe if you're a craft technician in the chemistry, you're on the craft team within chemistry. Above that, you're on the chemistry team. Above that, you're on the plant team. And so you can operate in many different teams within the same organization. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes what separates good teams from bad teams is at the end of the day, I think the big team should always win out over the smaller teams. And in other words, sometimes I got to, as a department or as an individual, I have to forego my priorities for the bigger team. And I think sometimes people forget that we're doing this for the overall team. And I think that's important.
We're continuing to speak with Darren Myers, and Darren is the local facilitator for TAB CSRA, a peer-to-peer advisory group, and that's tabcsra.com. We're here at Augusta Podcast Studios, and I meant to ask you, so you watched the playback last week, and what did you think of the facility and doing these podcasts? How do you enjoy it?
Well, I guess today I'm not a rookie podcaster anymore,
No,
but I'm certainly still not a veteran either. But I just try to have conversations and answer the questions that you give me, honestly, and speak from the heart and draw on my experiences that I've had. And so that's important. And, you know, the comment of I've been a part of good and bad teams, as we said during the original podcast, my career has been largely in the nuclear power industry. And, you know, that industry has a lot of independent assessments that come in and look at your plant operations. And frankly, you get assessed in just so many differing areas, departmental levels like operations and training and maintenance and engineering and chemistry, so on and so forth. But they also take a look at it more from an organizational standpoint. Mm-hmm. And those assessment teams are always looking for areas for improvement. And, you know, I think the industry, at least that industry that I know quite well, really puts a tremendous amount of emphasis on the organizational effectiveness, which if you broke that down would be into like leadership and teamwork, the topics that we talk about, because they recognize how important to operate a organization like that, how important teamwork is. And if you get an area for improvement in one of those teamwork kind of categories, it's taken very seriously.
Well, and you're very well read on what some other business leaders have done in the past. What were your thoughts about Steve Jobs and Apple?
Well, look, I think one of the quotes that I like Steve Jobs, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't have it entirely right, but he basically goes along the lines that says, hey, we go out and hire smart people, and then it shouldn't be our job to essentially tell the smart people what to do, but rather we ought to let the smart people tell us what to do. And I think that's sort of a great way of emphasizing, if you're going about recruiting, claiming that employees are your best asset, you got to listen to them. And I think too often we don't necessarily follow Steve's guidance. I think we go hire a lot of people, and then we want to tell them what to do versus soliciting their input and talking to them on their ideas.
And you think the results are better that way, with more of a, what would you call that, a consensus team building?
Well, to me that's an obvious yes. I think good teams will always beat the superstar. And I think that's extremely obvious if you look at what happens in sports. I mean, it comes to mind LeBron James, probably many, and I'm not that big of an NBA fan, but clearly LeBron James is considered one of the best, but he failed and got beat by a lot of, I'm going to say, better teams. And so I think that definitely applies into the business world as well.
Well, before we scoot, the ultimate team in the CSRA is the Alternative Board. I'm part of it. Share a little bit about how that is helpful in building a better company.
Yeah. Look, I just think that, as I said, it's easy to talk about how important teams are. I think you would find most people that would likely agree with that. I think where we drop the ball is, do they know how to get there and actually establish a team that can consistently provide superior performance over the long haul? And it takes a lot more than just saying team's important, but it's things like engaging your employees, communicating with them, getting them involved, allowing them to be a part of the decision-making process from time to time. And businesses are not necessarily democracy, so I'm not suggesting that every team member needs to be involved in every decision. But if you want to, I think over the long haul, have superior performance and retain good employees and have engaged employees, you really need to practice some of these principles. And I think that's where the TAB, back to your question, I think the TAB board and the coaching that I try to provide to the members, we get into that detail of not just trying to emphasize how important team is, but getting into that culture change of really, truly having your organizations truly have a team culture.
Well, again, Darren will be one of the keynote speakers in the morning session at the Augusta Business Daily Conference and Expo, October 28th, abdexpo.com. Also, tabcsra.com to learn more about coaching as well. It's about buy-in, for sure, with employees and working together, building a consensus, and following that vision. So I like this a lot.
Yeah, I'm excited about it as well. I've been involved in good teams and bad teams, and boy, when you get on a good team, it just is amazing how much you can do. One, I think your results end up getting, you're much further down the road, and life gets easier at the same time. So you're producing more with less effort.
Don't be a Detroit Lion.
Yeah, I'm not a Lions fan, so I'm okay with that.
That's right. Thanks, sir.
All right, thank you.
Okay.